Welcome to Catapult Leaders Conversation with Leaders. Listen in and take note as Catapult Leaders CEO Daryl Mobley chats with John Zweig about using curiosity to elevate your business career. John Zweig is Global Chief Executive of NeuroInsight and former Chairman and CEO, Specialist Communications at WPP, the world's largest advertising company.
John, I am thrilled to be with you today, and I want to talk about the power of curiosity. Now, I've known you for a long time, and I really honestly could think of no one that I would want to have this talk about more than you, because I think the folks listening and watching what we do will be able to take a lot from your insights into the notion of curiosity. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. First, question number one. What role have you seen curiosity, either having it or not having it, play in a person's business career?
Well, it's vital. I mean, first, let me just make the point that I intentionally didn't think a lot about this before this conversation, because in your characteristic fashion, Daryl, you've taken an idea that everybody thinks that they know everything about already. You know, we've all heard about curiosity. And you are stimulating me to think about it in a different way. And, and that was always kind of your strength, is that you would take familiar notions with just enough of a twist to help us to see them in a different way. And I think that's what you're doing with your current business. And again, to return the compliment, in all the years that I've known you, that's something that I really can count on from you, that you can take something that sounds as simple as enjoying life and give it new meaning so that it's not a cliche. So I intentionally did not Google the value of curiosity or how to acquire it. And partly because I remember a Harvard Business Review article just on that. I can't remember what it said, but we can guess, right?
Right.
We can guess that it says, there can't be creativity, there can't be innovation, all of those things that, are fairly obvious. But then you take the notion that there's something that lies beneath curiosity. And what is that? And I mean, I'll start there because, you're in the business of identifying and developing talent. And what could possibly be more important than a quality that is as innate as one's curiosity, because it influences everything, who we are as people and how we learn, what we learn. While, there's any number of things that you can say that are great about it. It makes your life more interesting. It makes more possibilities apparent to you. We could go on endlessly with all the kind of traditional values associated with curiosity. And there are even a few negative ones, right? I remember being told fortunately, it was not my parents, but I remember being told by teachers or other relatives that curiosity killed the cat.
That's right.
And so, there must even be something in people's minds that is associated with the risks of curiosity. So, getting back to your question about the role that it has in business and in work, and my, initial response that it is absolutely vital, I think it just goes back to the thing that we all have in common, not just as people, but every living organism, from a tiny cell to vast, complex, the universe itself. And that is the drive for growth. That innate desire, which is the germ of everything, desire. And, growth takes many forms. Sometimes it's assimilating. Sometimes it's duplicating. I don't know the technical terms, you probably do, but I know that it always boils down to reaching into the outside world to bring that into your inside world. The same way that nutrition works. That without the right food in our bodies, we atrophy or we get sick or we fail to thrive. If we don't put the right stuff into our minds, it's no different. Our psychic nutrition is probably another, analog of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll start with the idea that the reason that it's vital is not because it makes life more interesting or entertaining or enjoyable. It's because it is absolutely essential. That is a manifestation of growth. And without that drive and expression and follow through of growth, there can be no business. There really can be no life. Because, as the old cliche goes, you're either growing or you're dying.
Right.
So that's the first thing it is essential in business. It is vital in business because without growth, there can be no business. And without curiosity in an individual or a group, there can be no growth.
Wow. That's a very, very strong answer and complete. Now, you have had working for you over the years, thousands of people, whatever, hundreds of people, whatever it's been. And you've had a chance to interview tons of people and you've seen people come and go. How can a person develop their curiosity? Like we have a lot of folks here who are graduated from college, maybe they're grad school, they're recent graduates. And so they're really at the beginning of their adult journey. How can they develop their curiosity?
Well, it's a great question. And it's one that I probably should have thought more about it because I'm frankly torn between the idea that it probably has to start so early, with parents introducing kids, celebrating new knowledge, that I'm not sure, frankly, how successful the efforts that I may have had, or frankly, anybody else, in developing curiosity at a later age. But there, like everything, that there are circumstances and systems, and probably most importantly, values that mitigate against it. And there are those that support or foster it. So let's talk briefly about them.
Okay.
I think the first thing that stimulates it is acceptance, meaning teaching people not to judge prematurely. It's no different from, what we're up against in recruiting high quality Black talent, because that, whether to our earlier conversation, whether that bias is either unconscious or conscious, we know that it is there. And what is that bias? That bias is judging prematurely. And what's the solution to it? It is to be open. It is to accept. It is not to judge prematurely. And I think that is inherent in curiosity. So on the negative side, there are many things besides just the nature of prejudice itself that cause us to judge or restrict prematurely. The whole nature of business, as you know well, specialization.
Right.
And, you can take investment banking or consulting or pretty much the whole career process and conclude that we are probably forced prematurely to specialize. And then the system rewards that specialization and probably punishes generalists, kind of like you and me. We're mixed bags, right?
That's right.
Engineer, military, right. Marketing, creativity, entrepreneurism, coaching. This is not a slow, steady, incremental, logical career path that you have had. Similarly, I was a musician. Then I was a combat Vietnam vet. Then, I was a writer. Then somehow I talked my way into getting to Procter & Gamble. Then somehow, I found my way back into the creative field. And then, following that experience of working on the creative side of marketing, I sold my company, and then I was working for the world's largest marketing services company. And then it is true, I had tens of thousands of people I was responsible for among the 75 or 80 companies that I acquired or theoretically ran in the course of that 25 years at WPP. And I learned a lot from both the successes and the failures. And, one of the many paradoxes in life is that an industry that exists to provide creativity, and what could be more related to the subject of curiosity than creativity?
Right.
That it was in short supply, that the purpose of the business, became returning shareholder wealth, the cascading down of our corporate objectives became largely monetary. And all of those other, let's call them gain-based values, right? Money, status, power, celebrity, how many people report to you, how big is your office, how many homes do you have, what kind of car do you drive? All of those things became the drivers that fight directly against a spirit of inquiry for its own sake. Being open, wanting to go beneath the surface of what is easily accessible, even if it may not play overtly into your goal of promotion, status, wealth, etc. So again, it's the difference between the cultural values that we are, first by our parents, and then by our teachers, and then by the popular culture. And let's face it, our parents often, they want us to be secure. They want us to have a good, steady job. They may be pushing us into medical school, whether we're interested or not.
Right.
And then we get into, we get into the business world, and we're rewarded for our narrow expertise because that's a niche where there's less competition, and we're rewarded. Just like, what happened to medicine? You can't find a good family doctor anymore.
Right.
Everybody is, or my brother, who was chairman of family medicine at a university, now the dean of the medical school, he calls them subspecialists, which is his sort of derogatory way of saying that we're not curious enough about the whole organism. We don't stop, listen, just for the sake of being open without judging. And all of those gain-based values, as I say, mitigate against them. What are the values that support more curiosity amongst your organizations, your communities, your family? I think it is looking at things like creativity for its own sake, for the joy of bringing forth what is within us. I think it is collaboration for its own sake, for the joy of working with others. And, back to the subject of diversity, working with people who are different from us, because we learn more from people who are different from us. I think these are identity-based values. Who are we? If we are here to, make money, get a nice house, be a big shot, and, your life comes to an end where you're hanging out there in, Ocean Grove or wherever all the other ex-big shots are talking about who you used to be, or are you somebody who until the very end is still reading and thinking and interacting and volunteering and being open and not talking about who you were, but talking about who you still can be. And I think the process goes something like this, Daryl. I think that first it's recognizing what I said, that curiosity is tied to a drive for growth, and that every single organism must grow, must reach out and incorporate new knowledge, new information, new nutrition in order to grow. That's the first thing. Growth and desire are the great unifying concepts. But the second thing is to accept, is not to judge prematurely. Now, let's take what you might argue as sort of an objection to that. Does that mean that we accept the status quo? because you can't have innovation if you think everything is okay the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not contradictory. It doesn't mean that you accept things as they are. It means that you don't judge prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
As you say often, we still have to keep solving new problems all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first lesson is that the more that we can take in without shutting off
Mm-hmm.
by evaluation or judging prematurely, the more that we have to work with. It's almost mathematical
Mm-hmm.
in solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to decide at some point, right? You have to commit. And I think the idea of positive change, again, is not inconsistent with taking information in without judging prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, we have to be open, but we have to have that same curiosity when it comes to our teams, our organizations, our companies, our communities, because they have to keep changing and growing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're complementary ideas that you don't accept the status quo, yet you don't judge prematurely.
Wow. Okay. All right then. My goodness. So this, I'm a big believer, as you've laid it out, frankly, articulated, fantastic, in the notion of creativity, curiosity, and all these wonderful things. And I think it's almost like curiosity is almost like a superpower. Used correctly, it can open doors to things. It can lead you to new worlds, all this wonderful stuff. So I'm going to take it down to kind of blocking and tackling, perhaps.
Sure.
How can a person who's maybe they're just entering the business world and they're just getting started in their careers that are early on, how do they best share their curiosity with the business, with their opportunities, with the people around them?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think this is related to your second question, because, when you share one's own curiosity, it's infectious,
Mm-hmm.
like COVID-19, except in a good way.
Indeed, yes.
Well, what was it that Emerson said? Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm.
Right.
What's enthusiasm? Probably in Greek, it means sort of entheos, or God. It probably has to do with, the God, quote, God in you,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing that spirit of abundance, or light or energy, which I think causes other people to respond in kind. And so the first thing is to be a manifestation. So when you, as being such an outstanding leader as you are, and, what's the best quality? I probably could tell you people who might be able to make a more eloquent speech, but I don't know of anybody who is a better example than you, who provides by virtue of, who you are, the decisions you've made, the way you live, what you believe, is more important than kind of the words that you say and the arguments that you construct. It's like, I'm sure somebody would have said a long time ago, when Demosthenes speaks, people say, "Oh, wow, what a great speaker."
Mm.
But, when the Spartans leader, Theodosius, what was his name? Leonidas speaks, people say, "Let's go to war."
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. Why? Because they are living that rather than saying it.
Mm.
And I think that there's a lot of, there are a lot of things that, I've been so lucky to experience by virtue, probably as a result of the curiosity
Mm-hmm.
that that I had from an early age. But, I had this fabulous father, and this is precisely related to your question of blocking and tackling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would get these assignments in, I don't know, 6th grade, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Write an essay about, what would like to be a journalist or a reporter. And I didn't know. And I'd go home, I'd ask my dad, what do you think? And then he would come up with this cockamamie idea that would be way off into the lunatic fringe, which I would dutifully listen and make notes and copy down. And, it would wind up half the time being over the teacher's head or saying, where the hell did that ever come up with? But again, back to the tangible, practical blocking and tackling.
Mm-hmm.
His idea for this essay was that I have a magic sword. He loved weaponry.
Okay.
So everything was a sword or a knife or a gun or an axe or some damn metaphor like that. I had a magic sword, and the hilt was a hexagon is 6, right? Yeah.
Yes.
It was a hexagonic hilt. And on each side of the 6 sides of that pummel was a question. Who, where, what, why, when, how? That's what a reporter does, right?
Right.
Asking a question, who, where, what, why, when, how, are just all different aspects of, we could call it forced curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've got a template, for asking the right questions,
right,
then you're forced into listening to the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're forced into having, writing an article that answers, someone else's curiosity needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that habit of being open and asking questions and being an example are probably, the best both, ways of being a positive carrier of contagious curiosity. And then, that's just one out of endless. I'm sure that if you read that Harvard Business Review article,
mm-hmm.
it will tell you, start a book club,
right. Right.
Have a group where people share their hobbies. I'm sure that there's any number of practical suggestions
mm-hmm.
on how you cultivate and share curiosity. But I'll go back to the sort of the fundamental thing, which is that values drive behavior. And we know from our combined and individual work experience that there are a lot of different systems and structures and processes that will work with the right values.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no model, there's no system, there's no structure that really works with the wrong models. Mm-hmm. In other words, if you are only about money, I don't care if you've got the best knowledge sharing collaboration software in the world. Mm-hmm. People are still going to be entering into that thing with what's in it for me, mm-hmm. because they're thinking about money. But so, yes, I think that it goes back to these questions of, who are we and why are we here? And what do we believe is true and important and represents meaning? Mm-hmm. So, if you can't get that part right, it's a little bit like, you can start buttoning your shirt. If it's in the wrong hole, you can keep buttoning, and it's never going to be right.
Never going to be right.
And a lot of companies, maybe they learn about the value of mindfulness or curiosity or well-being, mm-hmm. A little late in the game. Mm-hmm. And while they're, preaching self-care, the whole nature of that institution is so driven by an appetite, for gain-based goals, power, celebrity, status, wealth, mm-hmm. that, it doesn't really matter if you're going to yoga every Wednesday,
right,
on the company's dime.
Right.
You have not really built an organism as opposed to an organization, mm-hmm. that by virtue of, what is innate in every organism, and that is a desire to reach out and to grow. And to take in something new and to convert that into something that is better, mm-hmm. and to share that with others who also, understand that there is joy,
right.
and meaning in the simple act of learning and sharing. And that will create opportunities for innovation that you can't imagine. Mm-hmm. And if you think that it all resides in a department, let's say, the innovations group,
right,
like companies may have, and
right.
you make the mistake of thinking, we're going to place our curiosity into the hands of the innovation group.
That's right.
Sorry.
Right.
It's just like marketing, right?
Right.
How many clients, you can take your background in, let's say you got a big engineering firm,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a marketing department. And then what do they think? Well, they think that's somebody who's writing the ads or comes up with the slogan. And they don't really see, as you and I have experienced, as brand managers,
Mm-hmm.
that marketing is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is the product itself,
Right.
from the point of view of the consumer.
Right.
And that's all that matters, right?
Right.
Is the point of view of the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is the price. Marketing is the interaction with the company when you call about a complaint. Marketing, we have learned, is the morale of the employee base, which is expressed in profitability, because people like to do business with companies who have happy employees.
Right.
Right. I mean, I could take a ride on United, and that's a bad experience. Why? Because those damn people who are working on the plane,
right,
obviously are not happy and not
Mm-hmm.
enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And I could take a ride on Southwest, and although I may have to stomach some hokey singing or jokes,
Right.
at least, thank God, those people are happy.
Right.
The system, the corporate culture embraces or tolerates enough curiosity about personal worth
Mm-hmm.
that they allow that person to bring his or her whole self into the workplace.
Wow.
And that becomes contagious, again, like a virus or a sore throat.
That's right. In a good way. In a good way. I should stop here, but I have to ask you one more question. You mentioned sharing. And one of the great gifts I ever received from a person sharing was you sharing that video of your father with me. And I've seen it and watched it, and he truly, obviously was a remarkable man. I'm not trying to extend you beyond need, but what do you think your father would say about the power of curiosity? What would he say?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, because we spent so much time together
Mm-hmm.
that, to be honest, I can't tell, what's his stuff and what's my stuff anymore.
Right.
And so I guess the short answer is he probably would say pretty much the same thing that I am.
There you go.
Because in some ways I'm probably ripping off what he said.
Right.
And in many ways, he's probably ripping off what Ralph Waldo Emerson or the Gnostic scriptures or the Bhagavad Gita said.
Right.
That
Right.
all became, part that whatever curiosity was stimulated before there was television
Mm-hmm.
came about through the library,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, he came from a messed up family, and his mother was married 6 times, and which for Italian Catholic was really something.
Right.
And he hung out at the library, and he started to read. And he probably would say that, the social media and the popular culture have co-opted, and marketing, this
Mm-hmm.
is
Right.
the shame that we must
Right.
feel about the way we've spent so much of our lives, that marketing co-ops people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing takes away maybe one of our greatest gifts in some sense, which is where to direct our attention.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really, but it succeeds in doing so. And we have to claim that right for ourselves, the power of our attention. And he would say that, we need a great spirit of inquiry first.
Okay.
And that then leads to something that we can make a decision about.
Mm-hmm.
And that once we've made a decision, it has to be a resolution. He would say a fatal commitment.
Okay.
So there's a time for openness,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a time for single-mindedness.
Right.
And there is a time for education and learning. And there's a time for eliminating all ambiguity and just charging ahead,
Mm-hmm.
acting. And it's an iterative process, right?
Yes.
It's like the nature of creativity itself. You're open, you brainstorm, and then you focus and you subject your trial balloon or your hypothesis against a rational process. And then that rational process has to give way once again to something that will take it to the next level, so that it's not bound, by its constraints, but rather, moves along the evolutionary path. That's what's taken us as a species, from the swamps to the stars. It's curiosity. But remember, curiosity is a drive for growth, and growth is the force that unites all living things.
Wow. John, you have been fantastic and give me more time than I ever imagined, but I know people listening to this, watching it, are going to just, if they take, once again, I share, pull out a pen, pad of paper, or whatever you keep notes on, and just flow through this and listen to it again, because I know I'm going to listen to it again, because there's so many pieces to this pie that you laid in front of us. And it's just been fantastic. So I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for the information you gave.
Thank you, Daryl. And again, there's nobody I would rather talk to about an important subject like this than you.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks a lot.
You've listened to Catapult Leaders Conversation with Leaders. Special thanks to John Zweig.
Be sure and go to catapultleaders.com so that you can apply to the Catapult Leaders program if you are a college student or grad student or a recent graduate. If you are a company leader looking to up-level your company by hiring outstanding new employees, please go to catapultleaders.com and contact us. Let's go.